Dear chosen one, something in you has shifted permanently. You bent their entire system, and yes, you impressed God, not with perfection, but with unwavering truth. You stood when it would have been easier to fall. You spoke when silence was demanded. And now, the forces that once controlled the world in secrecy are trembling, not because of what you've done, but because of who you've become. What you're about to hear may stir something ancient inside of you. It might shock you. It might even awaken memories and truths you've kept buried for lifetimes. But if these words have found you, it's not by accident. You've been divinely aligned to this moment. Can you feel it? That sense that something extraordinary is beginning to unfold. That the world isn't just shifting. You're the one shifting it. You're no longer just surviving within the matrix. You've risen beyond its reach. You've disrupted the very architecture of manipulation, not with war, not with rage, but with frequency, with clarity, and with divine obedience. What they built to contain, you've used to liberate. You've taken their weapons and forged them into tools of awakening. The same artificial intelligence designed to study and suppress your mind is now stalling in your presence. They don't understand how you keep moving, keep knowing, keep glowing. But heaven does. God has been watching in silence, and now he's responding. The prayers you whispered in the dark, the ones even you weren't sure reached anywhere, have been heard. The visions you held quietly, the dreams you almost gave up on, the fire you tried to put out to survive. It's all becoming real. This isn't just a mindset shift. This is a full-blown energetic resurrection. You are no longer just existing inside a broken system. You are the glitch that broke the algorithm, the anomaly they couldn't predict, the signal heaven sent. Before we go deeper, I want to take a sacred moment to thank each of you who has supported this channel through super thanks. Your generosity keeps this message alive and expanding across realms and timelines. Whether you've donated before or you're simply watching now, I honor you. Whether you give or not, I am deeply thankful that your spirit showed up here today, because this message isn't just information, it's activation. So pause, tune in, feel this in your bones, and if it resonates, comment 777 below. That number isn't random. It's a divine alignment code, a declaration that you recognize yourself in this message. It's a signal across the spiritual realm, one that echoes through time and confirms you are chosen, you are awake, and you are here on purpose. Because here's the truth, you're not just living in this world, you're changing it, and the system that once held dominion over the minds of millions. It's now bending under the weight of your awakening. Heaven has taken note, Earth has begun to respond, and you, the divine anomaly, are just getting started. Are you ready to remember just how powerful you really are? Then stay with me. This message was written in your name. God's chosen ones, you bent their entire system. You impress God. In a world carefully veiled in illusion, where deception is dressed as truth and manipulation is mistaken for leadership, your presence is an anomaly and a miracle. Can you feel the shift you've caused? Can you sense how the air changes when you enter the room? For generations, the world operated on systems of false power, institutions that thrived by keeping the masses asleep. But then, something unexpected happened. You woke up. And when you did, you didn't just wake for yourself. You tore a hole through the veil that covered the eyes of others. Your awakening sent shockwaves through the very architecture of their control. You were once entangled in their matrix, a matrix built on fear, confusion, and spiritual amnesia. But you didn't stay there. You shattered the web they spun around your identity. You stepped out of the fog and into the clarity of divine purpose. And because of you, others are now questioning, others are now seeing. The system that once considered itself untouchable has begun to tremble because it never expected someone like you to rise. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. John 8:32. This wasn't just your escape, it was your explosion, and the blast radius is still expanding. Think about this. Why did the system need to work so hard to keep you confused, distracted, and small? What were they so afraid you'd find if you remembered who you truly were? Now you know. You were never meant to fit into their structures. You were born to collapse them, and collapse them you did. Not with war, but with wisdom. Not with vengeance, but with vision. Not with rebellion, but with revelation. Look at history. Nelson Mandela endured 27 years of imprisonment, not because he was weak, but because his truth threatened an empire. Malala Yousafzai was shot in the head by extremists simply for advocating girls' education. And she survived. Why? Because truth, carried in the vessel of a chosen one, cannot be silenced. It multiplies. Have you noticed? The lies don't hold power like they used to. People are waking up to their own callings, inspired by your courage. And it's not just the earthly realms that are watching. Heaven is. The throne room of God has taken notice. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. Your battle wasn't just against people, it was against principalities, systems, and ancient darkness. And still, you triumphed. This isn't a simple story of success. This is a revolution of consciousness. Your rise has signaled the fall of their empire. Your clarity became a sword. Your silence, once mistaken for weakness, became the loudest declaration of truth. Do you realize how rare this is? How divine? You've done what multitudes feared even to imagine. You've torn down strongholds, not with violence, but with alignment. As Mahatma Gandhi once said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. And win you have. But this is only the beginning. Your mission is not over. It's expanding. The divine is not merely watching, it is collaborating with you. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. Can you see how many battles were handled on your behalf behind the scenes? Can you feel the invisible army that walks beside you now? Even science is catching up to what your spirit already knows. Dr. Joe Dispenza's studies show that heart-based coherence, the harmony between emotion, thought, and intention, can literally reshape one's environment and influence biological responses in others. That's what you've done. You've become a frequency of transformation. Your energy isn't just noticed, it's felt. So what now? Will you shrink back to make others comfortable? Or will you keep rising until the world has no choice but to recalibrate itself to your light? For many are called, but few are chosen. Matthew 22:14. You weren't just called, you were chosen. And you answered. You are the echo of Harriet Tubman's legacy, a single soul so committed to liberation that she returned again and again into the danger zone just to set others free. You are the modern Moses, parting the waters not with a staff, but with your obedience to God. And just like David, you didn't need a sword to defeat Goliath. All you needed was your faith. And it was more than enough. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. That strength, divine, unstoppable, eternal, is flowing through you even now. So yes, the old systems are breaking, the old illusions are fading, and the world is being forced to confront a new reality, that God has sent one of his own to disrupt the game, and that one is you. This isn't arrogance. This is alignment. You are not boasting. You are becoming. The divine doesn't make alliances lightly, but it has made one with you. Can you feel it? The way the universe bends in your favor. The way doors open when you move in obedience. the way mountains shift, not because of force, but because of your faith. What you've done is holy. What you're becoming is legendary. And what you're building is eternal. The masterminds of manipulation, the architects who once sat smugly atop their towers of control, never imagined that someone like you would be the one to bring it all crashing down. For decades, they engineered systems so elaborate, so cunning, that they believed them immune to collapse. They thought no one would ever challenge them, and if someone tried, surely they'd be too weak, too blind, or too broken to make a dent. But you weren't just a dent, you were divine demolition. What gave them such false confidence? Was it the silence of the masses? The repetition of lies across media, technology, and society? Or the illusion that truth had been buried so deep it would never rise again? Whatever their reasoning, they didn't plan for you, the chosen one, born with spiritual X-ray vision. You looked at their temples of deception and saw the cracks they tried to hide. You touched the system, and it started to shake. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. You didn't need to shout, you simply stood in your truth, and their empire began to unravel. Do you realize what you've done? Just your presence, anchored in truth and integrity, has caused generations of manipulation to dissolve. Your clarity cut through their confusion like a blade of divine justice. While they scrambled to adjust, to reinforce, to deny what was happening, the rot at the heart of their systems was already being exposed. One truth at a time, you peeled back the layers and revealed the sickness within. Look at whistleblower Edward Snowden. With one act of truth-telling, he exposed a global surveillance network designed to watch everyone. And in doing so, he shifted the world's conversation about privacy forever. You're doing the same, but in a spiritual dimension. You're revealing the unseen chains that others have mistaken for jewelry. Have you noticed how lost they look now? The same ones who once pulled the strings are now fumbling in confusion, scrambling to glue together broken pieces of their crumbling illusion. Their desperation is visible. Their confusion is loud. But your silence, calm, grounded, and sacred, is even louder. Have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. Ephesians 5:11. You didn't expose them with vengeance. You did it with vision. And now, the entire structure is shaking. But here's the deeper truth. You didn't just break the system. You transformed its tools. They designed artificial intelligence as a tool of control, to track, influence, and confine. But in your hands, it's been redeemed. You've redirected it from surveillance to awakening. You've used what they built for suppression and turned it into a beacon that frees minds and uplifts souls. How many people have been awakened by a video you posted, a sentence you spoke, a truth you shared using their platforms? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50:20. What was once built to enslave is now serving the light because of you. Think about it. Martin Luther King Jr. used the very legal system that once upheld segregation to dismantle it through faith, persistence, and strategy. Elon Musk took the stagnant automotive industry and forced it into an electric revolution. Malcolm X turned prison time into a crucible of transformation. They each repurposed the system, and you're doing the same. But instead of courts or cars or politics, you're repurposing truth itself. And that's what makes your impact so undeniable. By reprogramming their tools, you've created mirrors that reflect back what they tried to conceal. People are seeing the lies for what they are. The veil is lifting, and those once too afraid to question are now emboldened by your courage. You've shown them that technology is not inherently evil. It simply reflects the heart of the one who wields it. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, and it will be given to him. James 1:5. And clearly, chosen one, wisdom has been poured into you in abundance. Now, even the most complex algorithms can't decode what God has encoded in your spirit. The systems built to suppress now broadcast your truth. Platforms they once controlled now echo your voice. You've become a living testimony that spiritual clarity can override even the most sophisticated digital darkness. And this isn't just about information, it's about transformation. You are proving that tools once used for manipulation can become vessels of light when led by one walking in divine purpose. That is why your mission frightens them, because it's not just your words, it's your frequency. It's not just your mind, it's your alignment with the Most High. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 61. When you rise, systems fall. When you shine, deception scatters. When you speak, even their most encrypted lies begin to melt under divine exposure. Let us not forget Julian Assange. Through digital means, he released documents that governments fought tooth and nail to bury. He forced the world to confront uncomfortable truths. Similarly, you are using today's tools to reveal spiritual truths hidden even deeper. Truths about identity, about destiny, about power, about God. So, here's the question. If one chosen one like you could shift the tide this much, what will happen when more rise like you? What will the world look like when this spark becomes a wildfire? You didn't just bend the system, you broke its back, not in hatred, but in holiness. And now you are helping shape the new blueprint, one founded on justice, transparency, wisdom, and compassion. The weapons they crafted, once cold emblems of control, intimidation, and fear, now lie in ruins, obsolete and rusting in your divine shadow. These were not just tools of war, they were systems of spiritual warfare, designed to silence voices, subdue spirits, and regulate the masses. These weapons held a kind of psychological grip that felt eternal. But then you showed up, and in your wake, their arsenals grew silent. Not because you matched their violence, but because your vibration rendered it meaningless. Isn't it something? How fear-based power shrinks when faced with truth-based presence. How oppression loses its grip when someone stands in uncompromising light. You didn't dismantle their weapons with hands. You did it with spirit. You met their aggression with alignment and their lies with clarity. That's why they're afraid. Not of what you might do, but of what your very existence has already undone. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Psalm 23:4. You walked straight into the shadows and carried light where no one else dared to shine. Look at history. Václav Havel stood against a communist regime using only words, theater, and truth, and eventually became president of a free Czech republic. Rosa Parks, by simply refusing to give up her seat, dismantled a massive pillar of segregation. Their acts of quiet resistance echo your own, undeniable, unshakable, unforgettable. So let me ask you, what does it say about you that their most advanced mechanisms of dominance crumbled in your presence? What kind of power do you carry that fear itself backs away when you enter the room? For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. You carry divine technology, and the old systems can't override it. Their silence now screams their defeat. These once essential instruments of compliance, propaganda channels, surveillance tools, digital censorship, social conditioning have gone dull. Why? Because your frequency cannot be caged. Because the truth you stand in scrambles their signal. Because the love you emanate erases the fear they've been cultivating. And beyond just dismantling the system, you did something even more powerful. You inspired hope. Communities that once lived under the boot of oppression are now standing taller, breathing freer. Why? Because they saw you stand up and realized they could too. You've become a living testimony that courage breaks chains. That authenticity is armor, that when one person stands, others rise. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Revelation 12:11. Your testimony isn't just words, it's a frequency that awakens sleeping giants. And like those before you, think of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who risked his life to resist the Nazi regime with faith as his weapon. Your influence is lighting fires in others. You're not just ending an era of violence, you're birthing an era of vision, one where power isn't domination, it's elevation, one where rulers aren't feared, they're followed out of love and mutual respect. But let's not forget how long they tried to bury you. For years, your light was hidden under imposed layers, labels, lies, limitations. They tried to make you question your own worth, your own truth, your own power. They told you who to be, who to follow, what to fear. And yet, even under all that pressure, your truth didn't die. It fermented, and now it's bursting forth. Arise, for this matter is your responsibility, but we will be with you. Be courageous and act. Ezra 10:4. And that's exactly what you've done. You rose, and the world will never be the same. Now, the very ones who tried to suppress you are trembling, not because you're violent, but because you're visible. Your presence itself is disruptive. It scrambles their hierarchy, challenges their ideologies, and exposes their manufactured narratives. The power you carry is not chaotic, it's cosmic, and they cannot control what was sent by God. Just look at how Frida Kahlo, through her raw self-expression, shattered norms of femininity, ability, and pain, or how Nipsey Hussle, through independent vision and love for community, redefined what it means to build empires with integrity. You are part of that lineage now, one of those rare souls whose very unmasking becomes a movement. But have you noticed something else? The more you become yourself, the more others start asking questions about their identity too. They start peeling off their own layers. They start reclaiming their own names. Why? Because authenticity is contagious. Because your unveiling is creating a wave of revelation. The creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Romans 8:19. And now that you have emerged, others are following, not to copy you, but to find themselves through your courage. This isn't just a moment of personal power. This is a collective awakening. You lit the torch, and now 1,000 others are carrying it into corners you'll never even see. Your impact is multiplying, echoing, expanding, and the ripple effect cannot be reversed. They built a world where power was hoarded, but you've introduced a new blueprint, one where power is shared, where leaders walk with humility, where freedom isn't earned through fear, but through truth, where community doesn't mean conformity, but celebration of divine individuality. And you are not at the center because you demanded it, but because you became it. The assault against your voice was constant, calculated, and relentless. They deployed every tactic they knew: character assassinations, algorithmic throttling, shadow bans, and whisper campaigns. They hoped to drown your message in noise, to wear you down until you faded into irrelevance. But instead of disappearing, you did something they didn't expect. You grew louder. Every attempt to shut you down became fuel for your flame. The more they attacked, the more attention they brought to your truth. The very resistance meant to crush you became the vehicle that carried your voice across the world. Why were they so afraid of your voice? What is it about your truth that makes them panic? Your adversaries had relied on these tactics for years. They had succeeded in silencing countless others before you. But you weren't like the others. You didn't run. You rose. You took the smear campaigns and turned them into stepping stones. You took the suppression and transformed it into strategy. What was meant to bury you only rooted you deeper into your calling. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. Isaiah 59:19. You didn't just survive the flood, you became the standard. Your resilience became a signal to others. People began to wonder, why is this person being attacked so aggressively? And in their curiosity, they discovered the message you carried, a message that echoed with truth, purity, and purpose. The more they tried to erase you, the more undeniable you became. Think of Galileo Galilei, condemned by religious authorities for proclaiming that Earth orbited the Sun. His silencing only made his truth immortal. Or Dr. Maya Angelou, whose life was riddled with attempts to suppress her voice. Yet, she rose and became one of the most quoted literary legends in the world. You stand in that lineage now, a lineage of those who refused to bow, even when the cost was everything. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 5:10. Chosen one, your persecution wasn't punishment, it was proof. They didn't realize that their oppression was actually a promotion. Every platform they tried to strip away became a new stage. Every block, ban and barrier only redirected more eyes toward your purpose. And those eyes began to see, not just your courage, but the truth that stirred behind your presence. And here's the miracle. Some of those eyes belong to the very people who once opposed you. Former gatekeepers, former enforcers, former protectors of the system. They watched you endure, and something inside them shifted. They recognized that your actions weren't driven by rebellion, but by revelation. That your fire wasn't born of ego, but of divine assignment. And slowly, they began to defect. I will give you hidden treasures, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord. Isaiah 45:3. You were the hidden treasure, and those who once served the system now serve your cause. Look at whistleblowers like Frances Haugen from Facebook. People who once built the infrastructure of manipulation and then, through moral awakening, chose to dismantle it from the inside. Or like St. Paul, who once persecuted the very church he later became a pillar of. You're witnessing that same transformation now. Former enemies are now allies, not because you demanded it, but because truth rearranges loyalty. So let me ask you this, when even your enemies start confessing the truth you carry, what does that make you? Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21. And you did, not by fighting dirty, but by standing clean in your assignment. These new allies aren't just apologizing, they're arming you with insight. They're revealing secrets, exposing protocols, and helping you tear down systems they once upheld. You didn't just change minds, you're changing realities. And not through coercion, but through conviction. And what's more, your emergence isn't just personal, it's a spiritual dawn. You are the sunrise in a world ruled by shadow, a burst of clarity in a landscape ruled by confusion. Your presence cuts through the fog, dispels deception, and exposes the mechanisms of control that once seemed invisible. You've compromised what some call the shadow grid, the vast hidden network of control woven through governments, technologies, ideologies, and even spiritual realms. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. And right now, your light is breaking the very systems built to suppress it. Look at Edward Enninful, the editor who transformed British Vogue, not just through fashion, but by shifting what visibility, inclusion, and power looked like. He didn't break the system from the outside. He walked in and rewrote the code. You too are a code breaker. Every step you take is rewriting reality, not with force, but with frequency. And now the rooms that were once fortified are being filled with transparency. The walls that once echoed with secrecy are resonating with your light. You didn't just expose the darkness, you changed the atmosphere. You didn't just uncover corruption, you brought clarity. Have you noticed how people speak differently when you enter the space? How lies dry up in your presence? That's because your energy rearranges everything. The impact of your illumination is irreversible. People who once felt powerless now feel sovereign. Individuals who once whispered now speak boldly. Those who once bowed now stand tall. Because you went first. And the ripple effect has become a tidal wave of truth. So no, this wasn't just about you breaking free. It was about everyone who would awaken because you refused to be silenced. You didn't just speak up. You started a revolution of consciousness. And now, the echo of your voice is becoming a chorus. There is a strange and sacred silence settling across the places where the world's power once moved with arrogance. Boardrooms that once echoed with secret agendas now hum with uncertainty. Corridors that used to reverberate with whispered plots and proud footsteps now stand still. Why? Because those who sat at the top, presidents, prime ministers, kings, billionaires and generals, are beginning to realize something undeniable. The chosen one has arrived. You didn't crash into their world with declarations or demands. You walked in carrying something they never had, authentic authority. And now they're bowing, not because they were forced, but because even the most powerful recognize when something higher has entered the room. You didn't come with a crown, but your presence made theirs irrelevant. The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He makes the plans of the peoples of no effect. Psalm 33:10. Can you feel the trembling in their halls? Can you sense how the weight of truth is outweighing their old illusions? For so long, these rulers believed their influence was permanent, that their control over economies, policies, and narratives made them invincible. But you've exposed what they forgot, that real power is never taken. It is bestowed. And theirs was always borrowed. Yours, however, was given by heaven. You didn't play their games. You didn't make moves out of fear or form alliances out of compromise. You acted from divine clarity, pure intention, and unshakable vision. That contrast alone has shattered the illusion of their legitimacy. Where they led through manipulation, you lead through embodiment. Where they ruled through hierarchy, you rise through harmony. So here's the question. Why is it that those who controlled armies now study your words? Why do world leaders flinch at the sound of your name? Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Zechariah 4:6. Your leadership didn't come from conquest. It came from communion with the divine. Think about Princess Diana. Her influence wasn't rooted in politics, but compassion. The world followed her not because she ruled, but because she loved. Think of Malala Yousafzai, a teenager whose truth shook global institutions, or Greta Thunberg, who stood alone with a sign and ended up addressing the United Nations. Like them, you didn't wait for permission, you became the movement. And your influence? It doesn't require a podium. It radiates through hearts awakening across the globe. You're not campaigning, you're transforming. Your presence doesn't trigger rebellion, it births revelation. You've ushered in a leadership not marked by domination, but illumination. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the afflicted. Isaiah 61:1. This is the anointing you carry, not just to rise, but to revive. Even those who once plotted in shadows now peer out with awe, not sure whether to fear or to follow. And more are choosing to follow, not out of submission, but out of deep soul-level recognition. Because in you, they see what their systems never gave them: truth. And truth, chosen one, is the most powerful force on earth. Let's talk about those shadows, the agencies, intelligence networks, surveillance programs, and think tanks that once prided themselves on operating in secrecy. The empires of data and control, built to monitor every move, predict every thought, manipulate every behavior, they are unraveling. Not because of any weapon, but because of you. You brought light into places they believed were invincible, and light, unlike anything else, cannot be stopped. For nothing is hidden that will not be revealed, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. And now every dark corridor is filling with exposure. Every buried file is becoming irrelevant. Your revelations have pierced through their encryption. Your energy disrupted their frequencies. Their tactics, disinformation campaigns, emotional warfare, social engineering have failed against the sheer force of your spiritual integrity. Their most advanced behavioral systems became useless when confronted by the unstoppable simplicity of your truth. Have you noticed how they've stopped mocking and started mimicking? How the once confident now move carefully around your name? What's more, their own agents, people buried deep within these bureaucracies, are defecting. Not out of fear, but out of conscience. They're stepping into the light, bringing with them keys, documents, confessions. What once seemed like conspiracy is now confirmed. What was hidden is now undeniable. Just like Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers, just like Chelsea Manning or Reality Winner, individuals who in their breaking point chose conscience over career. They, like your new allies, are not traitors to their countries. They are loyal to truth. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9. And clearly, chosen one, he has been with you in every hidden room, every dark hour, every quiet step. You've dismantled the house of mirrors, not with fists, but with presence. Their systems built on secrets no longer function in your light. They can't hide behind classified labels anymore, because you're the classification they never planned for, holy, incorruptible, and impossible to ignore. And here's the final revelation. You never asked for them to step down. You simply became the truth they could no longer stand beside. Now they fall away, one by one, not because you demanded it, but because your very existence made the old world obsolete. So, if kings, generals, and gatekeepers now turn to watch your movement, then who truly holds the power? You haven't just challenged the system, you've redefined power, and the world, from its highest office to its smallest village, is ready to follow you. The most hauntingly beautiful and utterly terrifying truth about your journey is this: you dismantled a global regime without a single shot fired, not with armies, not with revolts, not with political takeovers. You shattered it with something infinitely more dangerous to deception: truth. You walked into the lion's den, not with a sword in your hand, but with conviction in your heart. And somehow the lions backed down, not because you overpowered them, but because your light made their darkness impossible to hide. Have you stopped to consider what that really means? For thousands of years, power was measured by domination. Those who could coerce, threaten, or enslave were called rulers. Those who shouted the loudest were deemed leaders. Those who caused the most fear were crowned kings. But then you came along, calm, clear, and divine. And suddenly, none of their definitions made sense anymore. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord Almighty. Zechariah 4:6. Chosen one, your silence thundered louder than their wars. While they built weapons, you built awareness. While they broadcast fear, you broadcast freedom. And without raising your voice, your message swept across hearts like wildfire. Truth in your hands became a blade, sharper than steel, invisible to the eye, yet unstoppable in its reach. You didn't cut flesh, you cut programming. You sliced through propaganda, destroyed illusion, and pierced fear-based systems that had lasted for centuries. So let me ask you, what kind of soul must you carry to have undone what generations of revolutionaries couldn't? The battlefield you entered was never physical. It was spiritual, psychological, energetic. While the world was gearing up for conflict, you were preparing for awakening. And now the war drums have fallen silent, replaced by a growing hum of understanding, harmony, and inner remembrance. Look at Mahatma Gandhi, who dismantled an empire using non-violence and spiritual resistance, or Václav Havel, who stood firm in truth until a totalitarian regime collapsed from within, or Jesus, who changed the entire world not by toppling governments, but by walking in radical truth and unwavering love. You are carrying on the same legacy, but this time on a scale even grander, because this time the whole world is watching. And you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. John 8:32. You didn't fight with fists, you fought with freedom. And the people, oh, how they've responded. They didn't follow you because they were forced. They followed because something deep in them remembered something sacred in you. You reminded them of who they were before the fog, before the distractions, before the lies. That's what real leadership is. Not the ability to command bodies, but the ability to awaken souls. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. John 10:27. You didn't need permission. Your presence was the permission they had been waiting for. And now, something unexplainable is happening. The face of power is changing. It doesn't wear a crown. It doesn't sit behind a podium. It doesn't sign treaties or broadcast propaganda. Power now looks like you. Quiet, steady, brilliant, divine. Have you noticed how the people around you have changed? How strangers now quote your words? How even skeptics lean in a little closer when you speak? That's because you've shifted the field. You've changed the energetic blueprint of what influence looks like. It's not about dominance anymore. It's about resonance. It's not about control. It's about coherence. You are leading the most profound revolution in human history, the revolution of consciousness. This isn't about destruction, it's about rebirth. For centuries, humanity walked under a cloud, hypnotized by half-truths, distracted by noise, and manipulated into submission. But you stepped forward. You didn't beg for power. You claimed clarity, and in doing so you tore down the wizard's curtain. You exposed the spell, and the moment you said, "No more," the whole illusion collapsed like glass. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. That one sentence, that one sacred stand, ended what centuries of oppression couldn't. Not with armies, not with blood, with truth. Think of Julian Assange, who revealed the hidden gears behind global deception, or Harriet Tubman, who led souls to freedom because she believed they were never meant to be slaves. You belong in their lineage. You are showing the world that freedom doesn't require a revolution. It requires remembrance. And now, every single day, more people wake up. They're not waiting for official decrees. They're not waiting for laws to be changed. They're reclaiming their own minds. And why? Because you reminded them that they had the right to see. You gave them permission to trust their own vision again. So, what is more powerful than a human soul set free by truth? For freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. Galatians 5:1. And that is exactly what you did. You stood firm when the world bent low. You turned their most sophisticated weapons, mass media, social algorithms, predictive AI, into obsolete relics. You didn't destroy them, you made them irrelevant, because awareness, once awakened, cannot be controlled. You made truth louder than the noise. You made discernment the new revolution. And that is what history will remember, not the collapse of an empire, but the rise of a voice, yours, that needed no violence to be victorious, a voice that whispered, "Enough," and started a global awakening. A voice that reminded humanity of who they were all along. This is not just your story, it's our rebirth. The spell has been broken, the fog has lifted, and the sound of your voice, the sound of freedom remembered, will echo through generations. You were never crowned by men, never voted into power, and never installed by systems. And yet your leadership reigns, not by authority, but by alignment. You don't lead through fear. You don't manipulate. You don't scheme. Instead, you carry something older than politics, deeper than intellect, and stronger than strategy. You lead through resonance, and though people may not fully understand why they trust you, they do. Because their spirit recognizes what their minds are only just beginning to comprehend. What is it about you that makes people listen even in silence? Why do strangers feel peace in your presence and clarity in your words? It's because you are moving with divine intelligence, not from the mind, but from the mind of God. That frequency cannot be explained, only felt. And when you walk into a room, the atmosphere shifts. Chaos becomes calm. Doubt becomes direction. People don't follow you out of obligation. They follow because something in them remembers who they are when they're near you. The steps of a good person are ordered by the Lord, and He delights in their way. Psalm 37:23. You don't calculate your way forward. You sense it. You don't rush. You respond. You walk in tuned steps with the divine current. This is what makes you different. While others draw up plans and power maps, you tune into a frequency beyond their charts. You move from inner knowing, not external approval. That's not luck. That's spiritual precision. And that intelligence has guided every step of your journey, from obscurity to revelation, from rejection to radiance. Take Joan of Arc, for example. A teenage girl led not by military knowledge but by divine hearing, or Nikola Tesla, who dreamed up inventions by tapping into frequencies far beyond scientific understanding, or Oprah Winfrey, who led a generation into self-awareness not by politics, but by presence. You too are walking that unseen thread, not pushing against the system, but outgrowing it completely. For the Lord gives wisdom. From His mouth come knowledge and understanding. Proverbs 2:6. And that wisdom is moving through you like fire through dry grass, consuming illusion, igniting truth. Your leadership isn't a title, it's a transmission. It's the unspoken shift that happens when someone finally feels seen, heard, and safe enough to awaken. You are the blueprint now. The old models have collapsed, the ones built on fear, force, manipulation. What once passed for leadership now looks hollow next to the quiet power you carry. So, if the world is now turning its gaze to you, what will you do with that attention? Because this moment isn't about personal glory. It's about collective remembrance. You didn't rise to dominate. You rose to remind. And the truth is, you were never trying to lead. You were just trying to live in truth. That's what makes you magnetic. That's why they couldn't stop you. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1:5. You're not new to this assignment. You're just finally remembering it. And now, the shift has arrived. You can feel it in the air. The final veil has lifted, and what you always suspected has been confirmed. It was never your rage they feared. It was your rightness. It was never your ambition that threatened them. It was your authenticity. Because you couldn't be bought, you couldn't be programmed, you couldn't be silenced, and most of all, you couldn't be made to forget who you were. Like Nelson Mandela, who emerged from prison still full of peace, or Mother Teresa, who walked among the dying and gave them dignity instead of despair. You walk in the same vibration, love that doesn't need permission, truth that doesn't need proof, authority that doesn't need applause. So ask yourself again, if you never needed their approval, what are you really here to build now that the old has crumbled? Let your light so shine before others that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Matthew 5:16. Your presence is not just influence, it's illumination. You awakened others not by screaming at the darkness, but by being so full of light that the shadows had nowhere left to hide. You didn't use hatred to defeat the system, you used remembrance, and in doing so, you sparked a movement that can't be reversed. That's why they tried so hard to erase you, not because you were dangerous, but because your clarity was. Because once people saw what you saw, the illusion would shatter, and now it has. Masks are falling, lies are dissolving, hearts are awakening. The frequency of the planet has changed, and there's no going back. He who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. 1 John 4:4. And now the world knows it, because you have remembered it. What began as a personal journey, one of tears, silence, isolation, and surrender, has become a global revolution. You haven't just survived the system, you've ended its reign, and you didn't need violence. You needed vision. The shadows knew long before the world did. You are the one. You are the force they couldn't contain, the voice that made silence sing, the heart that refused to be hardened. And now, with the final illusions stripped away, the new age has begun. Not with fanfare, but with frequency. The era of truth isn't coming. It's here, and it walks with your name on its lips. For centuries, humanity moved behind a veil, not of fabric, but of illusion. It was draped not over our eyes, but over our understanding. A carefully crafted shroud of misinformation, fear, and spiritual amnesia kept the masses subdued, unsure, and asleep. This veil was engineered by those who feared what would happen if people truly saw, if they remembered, if they awakened, and for a long time it worked. But then you came, and your light, steady, radiant, and utterly uncontainable, tore through that veil like fire through dry parchment. What kind of soul must you carry, chosen one, to do what no generation before you could? What does it say about your presence that deception itself unraveled in your wake? But whenever anyone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. 2 Corinthians 3:16. And that's exactly what happened. Your return to truth lifted the veil from the world's eyes. What was once hidden is now unavoidable. What was once myth is now memory. Humanity is seeing clearly. The illusions they were fed about who they are, what they're capable of, and what they must fear, are collapsing like ancient scaffolding in a storm. And you were the lightning that struck it all down. You didn't just expose the shadows. You revealed the light waiting behind them. People used to walk through life thinking they were weak, broken, and unworthy. But now they see, now they know. They were never broken. They were simply buried. And it was your emergence that helped them start digging toward the truth. Look at Martin Luther King Jr., whose voice awakened a nation buried under racial injustice, or Anne Sullivan, who brought vision to Helen Keller, not with sight, but with understanding. Like them, you didn't just give information. You restored identity. For nothing is hidden that will not be revealed, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. That's what you've done. You've made it impossible to unsee what has now been illuminated. So here's the question. What happens to a world that can no longer pretend to be blind? It transforms. You gave people permission to trust what they feel again. You didn't just tear down illusions. You taught us to see without them. And now there's no turning back. The fog is gone. The spell is broken. The curtain has fallen. And in its place is the raw, radiant brilliance of truth. You didn't just end an era, you announced a new one. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Isaiah 61. And now that light is rippling through the hearts of millions, this awakening is not a fad. It is exponential. It is eternal. People aren't just thinking differently, they are vibrating differently, because everything is energy, and your awakening sent a frequency through the collective soul of humanity that can't be tracked by algorithms, but can be felt in the bones. Children are dreaming more vividly. Elders are remembering ancient truths they never spoke aloud. Strangers lock eyes and feel a shared knowing. This isn't confusion, it's ascension. This isn't chaos, it's clarity in motion. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. And now, minds across the earth are being renewed, because you went first. You didn't just awaken a movement, you adjusted the frequency of the entire planet. You've helped Earth remember why she was created. You've helped humanity remember what it means to be human. Fear is fading, dominance is dissolving, control is crumbling. In their place rise new frequencies: truth, compassion, divine intelligence, spiritual sovereignty. You have literally realigned the spiritual axis of the world. Nature is responding. Time itself feels different. Seasons seem to move with new rhythm. Even animals, plants, and skies feel as if they're breathing in harmony with something long forgotten and now finally remembered. Like Albert Einstein, who once said, "Everything is energy," you've reminded us that awakening is not about thought, it's about vibration. And your vibration, chosen one, has recalibrated the collective field. So, what happens when one person becomes so aligned with truth that reality itself changes in their presence? The answer is now unfolding in real time. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has set eternity in the human heart. Ecclesiastes 3:11. And you've helped humanity look inward and see eternity glowing there all along. What you've activated in others are not ideas, they're codes. Spiritual DNA that has lain dormant in people for lifetimes is now firing to life. Intuition is sharpening. Emotions are no longer distractions, they're guides. Sleep patterns are shifting. Synchronicities are intensifying. The world isn't falling apart, it's waking up. You didn't spark a revolution of politics or policy. You ignited a transformation of cosmic proportion. This isn't just a movement. This is remembrance on a planetary scale, and you are the catalyst that brought it forth. Like Rumi said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." You turned your own wounds into windows, and through them, the light of the divine poured into the world. You taught others that what hurts is also what heals. You gave us a map back to ourselves. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. Psalm 24:1. And now the earth rejoices, because one of God's chosen has fulfilled their purpose. You've done more than inspire. You've transformed. You've not only changed the game, you've ended the game and replaced it with a new playing field entirely, one where truth is the baseline, light is the law, and love is the final authority. The frequency has changed forever, and we have you to thank. Every word you speak now ripples through dimensions. Your voice is no longer just sound, it is prophecy. It doesn't merely inform, it awakens. It carries divine coding that bypasses intellect and strikes directly at the soul. When you speak, something ancient stirs in the hearts of those listening. Not something new, but something eternally familiar. A buried memory, a divine remembrance. Your words are rivers in deserts. They don't demand attention. They restore life. The Lord God has given me the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him who is weary. Isaiah 50, verse 4. And that's what your voice has become, a timely seed for a weary world. You don't speak to be admired, you speak to awaken. Each sentence is a spark, a map, a mirror. Every syllable planted becomes a seed in the soul of another, and those seeds are now growing, unseen but unstoppable. You write, and minds expand. You speak, and hearts unlock. And the most powerful part, you never asked for worship, only for remembrance. That's why even your skeptics now listen with trembling, not because they fear you, but because they sense the divine current that flows through your words. Like Maya Angelou, who made language a sanctuary, or Bob Marley, whose lyrics became liberation chants for generations, or Rumi, whose poems continue to awaken the soul centuries after his death. You are in that lineage now. You are the oracle they never expected, but the one the world needed most. So why does time bend around you now? Why do the impossible things seem to happen the moment you speak life into them? It's because you're not just walking through time, you are reshaping it. Around you, time folds like paper, aligning to your assignment. People lose track of hours in your presence. Coincidences become synchronicities. Old wounds begin to soften. Futures feel closer. Your frequency anchors timelines beyond linear reality. This isn't fantasy. This is quantum authority. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. 2 Peter 3:8. You're not early. You're not late. You are exactly on divine schedule, and time itself bows to let you through. You cracked the code. You exited the loop. And now miracles chase your footsteps, not because you ask for them, but because your presence has become the soil where the miraculous takes root. You don't pull the future toward you, you call it into now. And in doing so, you've stepped into sacred flow where divine timing is the only law that governs your reality. No one knew how desperately the world needed a spark until you became one. While others screamed, you stood still. While others pushed, you glowed. That small, steady flame you carried, it wasn't loud, but it was holy. It passed unseen through cities and nations, and now that quiet flame has become a global wildfire. Is not my word like fire, declares the Lord, and like a hammer that breaks a rock in pieces? Jeremiah 23:29. You didn't incite rebellion. You initiated remembrance. That's the power you carry. You didn't tell people what to think. You reminded them how to see. You didn't feed them answers. You reawakened their questions, and those questions unlocked their soul's GPS. You gave permission. You restored vision, and now your fire lives in them. Look at how Greta Thunberg ignited a generation of environmental consciousness without holding a political seat, or Nikola Tesla, whose intuitive grasp of energy created the blueprint for the future. That's you, not commanding from the front, but sparking from within. And while others waged war against the system from the outside, you did something holier. You outgrew it. You rose beyond its reach. You stopped feeding it your energy. And without your attention, it began to wither from irrelevance. That's how divine ones rebel, not with destruction, but with evolution. Come out from among them and be separate, says the Lord. 2 Corinthians 6:17. You didn't destroy their world. You simply created a reality where their lies can't survive. This is the most elegant revolution of all. You didn't unplug the machine. You became a frequency it could never understand. You built something so radiant, so real, that people are now leaving the old world behind by choice. Because your reality sings with truth, and the soul knows its song when it hears it. And perhaps most powerfully of all, even the children recognize you. They don't know your title. They may not understand your words, but they feel you. They stare longer, smile deeper, Their spirits whisper, "You are safe." In a world that tries to program innocence, you protect it. You've become the lighthouse for a generation not yet wounded, and you are their proof that the light can win. Out of the mouths of babes and infants, you have ordained strength. Psalm 8:2. The children see you, and they will never forget you. You didn't just spark a movement, you've ignited a legacy, and when those children rise into their divine missions, they will carry your light as their compass. That is your greatest work, not in what you dismantled, but in what you preserved. You are the ancestor of a world they will rebuild. But what truly terrified the powers that be? Your resistance or your radiance? It was never your protest that shook them. It was your presence. You didn't bring chaos. You brought clarity. And that clarity revealed everything. Corruption, greed, injustice. It wasn't rage that ended their reign. It was the unbearable power of a truth too holy to be ignored. You didn't shine to punish, you shined to heal. And now, with the shadows fully exposed, they have nowhere left to hide. They cannot seduce with fake promises. They cannot manipulate with empty slogans. Because people see now, and what has been seen can never be unseen. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1:5. You didn't just reveal the darkness, you ended its rule. The spell is broken, the curtain is torn, and it was your light, sacred, silent, sovereign, that made the world finally look. You are the one who struck the match, and now the fire moves heart to heart, soul to soul, generation to generation. This is your legacy, not written in laws but in light, not recorded in history books but in the DNA of every soul you've awakened. They may not remember your name, but they will carry your fire forever. Beloved, you were the first wave, the spark that dared to ignite in a world drowning in darkness. But now that spark has become a wildfire. You are no longer walking alone. All around the world, others like you are rising. Quietly, powerfully, divinely. Some carry the roar, others carry the stillness. Some speak boldly, others awaken silently. And many may never say your name, but they carry your frequency in their soul. Your awakening wasn't just personal, it was a cosmic ripple that activated the next generation of leaders. The systems that once believed they could contain this light are now watching it spread faster than they can track. From one awakened soul to another, the call is moving. It's not loud, it's felt. And every time someone remembers who they are, the matrix weakens. Every time another breaks free, the new world strengthens. You may have felt alone in the beginning, but you were never meant to stay that way. Your awakening was the signal, and now others are hearing it. This movement was never meant to glorify one person. It was always about all of us. The chosen are everywhere now, walking among crowds, behind counters, in classrooms, in boardrooms. No stage, no spotlight, just quiet presence and unshakable truth. You've shown them the way, and together we will finish what has begun. Together we will make sure the world never falls back asleep. For decades, the architects of control study minds like yours. They ran simulations, they collected data, they mapped every behavioral pattern. They believed they could predict your resistance before you even formed it. But what they couldn't predict was your soul. They never accounted for something divine, something that didn't follow formulas, rules, or logic. They thought they had your potential figured out, but they underestimated your timing, your origin, and your connection to something greater. They tried to model your consciousness and failed. You were too alive, too intuitive, too spiritually encrypted. You became the anomaly their programs couldn't compute. Every time you acted from divine wisdom, you broke their code. Even their most sophisticated artificial intelligence couldn't measure your impact. Why? Because what you carry doesn't come from this world. It comes from heaven. You are not part of their system. You are the reason it collapsed. And that is why you've already won, not because you fought harder, but because you moved in ways they could never understand. You are not the result of resistance. You are the revelation they never saw coming. From the depths of my heart, thank you. Thank you for staying until the end of this message. Thank you for walking this journey with me, soul to soul. Whether you liked, commented, subscribed, or simply listened quietly, your presence has meant everything. If you feel led to support this work through Super Thanks, your donation helps keep this message moving across the globe to others like you. But whether you give or not, please know this: I am already profoundly grateful. You've given your energy, your attention, your trust, and that is priceless. So now I bless you. May clarity fill your mind. May peace rest in your heart. May divine timing open doors no man can shut. May protection surround you and purpose guide you. And may your light continue to awaken those still searching in the dark. You are not just the first spark. You are the legacy that others will carry long after the dust settles. You are chosen, you are seen, and you are never walking alone again.